I'm going to start this off by saying my story might be a little long, so I appreciate you in advance for sticking with me. I'm a 23-year-old woman living alone in a pretty nice apartment in a decent neighborhood. I've been here for about 2 years now. Normally, our mail gets dropped off at the mailboxes in the front of our building, but every so often, packages get delivered straight to our apartment doors. It's a small perk, and honestly, I've always appreciated the convenience and knowing that our packages aren't going to get swiped right from the lobby. Well, about a year ago, I happened to be home in the afternoon because I had taken a half day off work due to a doctor's appointment. While I was relaxing in the living room, my front doorbell rang. I have a Ring camera, so I checked the feed and saw that it was the mailman. Pretty routine stuff, so I didn't hesitate to answer the door. But this interaction was my first inkling that something strange was going to happen. The man on the other side of the door appeared to be in his mid-30s, white, a little short, probably around 5'5", with oversized glasses and messy, thinning hair. Not exactly someone that would stand out in a crowd, but someone you'd recognize again if you saw them. I opened the door, smiled politely, and said, "Thanks so much," as I reached for the package. But instead of handing it off and just walking away, he stared at me. This wasn't for just a moment. I think it was around 10 seconds, and it looked as if he was staring through me, like something was off. This confused me, so I said, "Oh, did you need to take a picture of the delivery or something?" He didn't answer the question. Instead, he said very directly, "I know you. I've seen you before." It's times like this that I'm glad that I have the Ring that I do, because you can actually see my entire reaction on the doorbell footage. My expression changed instantly. I shift my weight backwards, kind of moving behind the door. I said, "I'm sorry, I don't think we've met." I was trying to stay polite, but also shut that conversation down as quickly as I could. You can even see me starting to shut the door. That's when he raised his voice just a little and took a step towards me. "I've seen your name on your mail. I found you on Instagram." My heart dropped, and I froze. "Me?" was all I managed to get out. I felt like a deer in headlights. And that's when he went on saying, "Yeah, you're a person of interest on Instagram for me. Your account was private, but you're really pretty." I give a flat, "Thanks," before physically taking that package out of his hand and slamming the door, locking it immediately. I stood there behind the door for just a moment, trying to process what had just happened. And I was grateful that I had the whole thing recorded. I showed the footage to my then boyfriend. He agreed. It was seriously weird. Now, weird, I can deal with, but it's what came next that made it even more unsettling. A few days later, I think it was a Saturday, the mailman came back. He walked up and rang my doorbell about 10 times. Not rapid fire, but spaced out, like he was deliberately waiting in between presses. But you'd think that a mailman who has hundreds of letters to drop off to various people isn't just waiting around at a door that's not opening, standing there, staring at the apartment number. But I didn't answer the door. I spoke through the Ring camera. "Hi, can you just leave any mail you have? Thanks." But his response was, "I actually don't have any mail for you today. I just wanted to come by and say hi. Can I come in for a glass of water?" I didn't say a thing. I admittedly froze again, mainly because I didn't know how to respond to that. I just waited until he left, then replayed the whole thing once again in my head about 100 times over. 2 weeks went by, and I started to feel like maybe that was the end of it. Maybe I had overreacted about the whole thing. Maybe I was seeking out drama that wasn't really there. But one morning, after I'd already left for work, I got a call from my boyfriend. He'd spent the night, and he told me to check the Ring camera because something had just happened. I pulled up the feed on my phone, and sure enough, that mailman was back. He rang the doorbell, and my boyfriend answered the door. There was an extended pause, and you could clearly see that the mailman didn't have anything in his hands. He was just standing there, obviously taken more than just a little aback by the fact that my boyfriend had answered. My boyfriend asked, "Can I help you?" The mailman replied with, "Yeah, where's that small girl who lives here?" That part really got to me. I stand at just under 5 feet tall, and I'm pretty petite, maybe 100 pounds soaking wet. The way he described me felt clinical, almost like it was something he had rehearsed. My boyfriend didn't hesitate. He said, "Oh, I live here too, and from now on, leave all of our packages downstairs. There's no reason for you to come to the door anymore." That's when he shut the door right in the mailman's face. I was so relieved by my boyfriend's presence of mind. At the time, he didn't live with me full time, maybe 2 nights a week at most. But him being there clearly made a difference. After that incident, the mailman pretty much disappeared. At least, I didn't see him again. My boyfriend and I eventually broke up, and with time, I stopped thinking about the mailman entirely. That is, up until today, which is what sparked me wanting to share this. I was coming home, entering the building just as he was leaving. We made eye contact, and I tried to walk past without engaging. But he turned and started walking alongside me. He said, "Hey, I haven't seen that guy in a while who used to live with you. Did he move out?" I panicked a little. I walked faster, fumbling for my keys, but I was able to get out a lie, and I said, "Oh, he's around." And as I opened my door, I added loudly, "Hey honey, I'm home," before quickly shutting the door behind me. I don't know why I said that. I think I just instinctively wanted to make it seem like I wasn't alone. And once again, something about the way he said it. That guy who used to live with you. It was like he was keeping tabs. So here I am, writing all this out, and I'm trying to figure out, am I overreacting? Am I being overly paranoid? Or is this really as creepy as it feels? Because to me, it feels like someone crossed a line, multiple times. But another part of me still wonders if I'm just being the drama. What do you think? Is this normal? Or is this something I should be seriously worried about? For the obligatory background information in my post, I had a childhood. It was terrible, where I don't remember anything from birth all the way to 13 years of age. Everything I know about what happened through those years was from a mixture of sparse memories, things my family members have told me about myself, and the police reports. One of the things I do happen to remember, though, is this lady that I called Auntie. No first name, no last name, no real clue about who she was. I just called her Auntie. I started seeing her when I was 7. I'd sit in her living room while she typed everything I said into her laptop. She was calm, soft-spoken, and seemed trustworthy. I saw her once a month, and she made me feel like I could open up. So I did. By the time I was 14, I confided in her that I had tried to unalive myself several times. There were a lot of reasons why. My mom's growing toxicity, the crushing isolation I felt, and more than anything, the trauma from my early childhood that, even though I didn't fully remember it, it never really left me. Now, even at that age, I started to question why I kept seeing Auntie, despite never feeling any better about my situation. I remember asking my mom about it on the way to one of these appointments. Maybe I could see someone else, someone who might actually help. She just snapped at me to be quiet. And that was the beginning of the breakdown between me and my mom. I used to cry to Auntie about how my mom made me feel, how unsafe and unheard I felt at home. But instead of supporting me, Auntie would always defend my mother. She'd downplay everything or suggest that I was overreacting. Back then, this led to me making excuses for her. I thought maybe she was just trying to help me see my mom in a more empathetic light. I thought maybe that was part of healing. But that turned out to not be the case at all. As over more time spent with Auntie, her reactions would only go further off the tracks. When I was 16, I wasn't exactly on my best behavior. I'd snuck out to parties, drank whatever was offered, and definitely kept it all a secret from my family. But during one of our sessions, Auntie asked me a weirdly specific question, something only someone with inside information would know. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe she'd just known me for so long that she could read between the lines. But even that illusion broke when at 17, she stopped asking and started stating things. She'd mentioned the parties directly. She wasn't trying to hide it anymore. By then, the relationship between me and my mother had almost completely fallen apart. And what really broke me, and what still hurts me to this day, is that at the end of every session, Auntie would call my mom into the room and tell her everything I had just said, nearly every word verbatim, and right in front of me. She'd quote me directly, and I'd sit there frozen as she relayed details about the emotional abuse I was facing at home, directly to the person who was responsible for it. My grades tanked. I wasn't allowed to go out anymore. I was even more isolated. And on that year's birthday, I tried one more time to take my own life. I went into my mom's room looking for something, anything, to help me do it. I was frantically rummaging through drawers when I found myself inside of her walk-in closet. I barely remembered she'd had one. I was desperate. And in the corner, under some hanging clothes, there was a suitcase. It didn't look old or dusty, which actually made me curious. I opened it, and inside were stacks and stacks of papers. It immediately stopped me in my tracks, and I just sat on the floor, overwhelmed and confused. And that's when I started reading. They were transcripts, pages and pages of my sessions with Auntie, typed, organized, dated, going all the way back to the beginning, when I first started seeing her at the age of 7. I felt physically sick. I had enough sense to quietly take a few of the older transcripts to avoid drawing attention. That night, after reading through them, my thoughts went to a very dark place. I knew I couldn't take much more of this, and I gave myself a silent deadline. I was going to figure out what the hell was going on before I turned 18, and from that moment on, I was hyper-aware in every session. I watched Auntie. I looked around her house. I asked my mom more questions about who this woman actually was. All I ever got in response was the same line. She's a psychologist. Now, eventually, I did something risky, something that I knew could completely blow up in my face. I stole my mom's phone. She was in the shower one morning. I had a bag packed just in case I needed to disappear for a while. As soon as I heard the water running, I took her phone and bolted. I didn't even look at it until I was on a bus heading to nowhere in particular. I started digging through her texts. I found Auntie pretty quickly. Though her name was unfamiliar, the conversations made it clear who she was. Appointment bookings, casual chatting. I scrolled through everything. I got off the bus and just kept walking, reading through years and years of messages. There wasn't exactly anything incriminating in them. No smoking gun for sure. But that's when I checked the call logs and I saw that my mom and Auntie talked all the time. Of course they would. Anything serious was happening over the phone, not through text. Smart. I remember sitting on a curb, totally emotionally drained. I looked through my mom's social media accounts, tried to find Auntie's name, but that was a bust. And then, almost by accident, I found her in my mom's followers. Her username was weird. Nothing close to her real name, but the photos, those were unmistakable. There she was, smiling with some of my mom's friends, and buried deep in her feed, a photo of her and my mom together from years ago. They had been friends even before I was born. That's when things started to click for me. The transcripts, the constant betrayals, the way she always defended my mom. She wasn't a psychologist. She was a family friend simply playing a role. I went home that night. I got beaten for stealing the phone, but I barely felt it. I only had one question burning in my mind for my mother. Who is Auntie really? And she couldn't answer. This never entirely blew over, but by the time I was 18, I had made it to college, and I was no longer in my mom's house. I was lucky. I had an old friend who let me stay with him, and it was great that we ended up at the same school, if just for the little bit of support that I had in him. He's actually still one of my best friends today, and honestly, that saved me. What finally gave me some closure came while cleaning out my own Instagram. I was removing people I didn't recognize or care about, and that's when I saw her. A familiar, odd username buried in my followers list. I searched it, and it linked to a Facebook profile, and of course, as you could imagine, it was Auntie. She had been following me this entire time, quietly watching yet never interacting with me outside of our sessions. In her Facebook bio, the part that broke me a little bit more, it said, chemistry teacher with over 20 years of experience. Not a psychologist. Never was, never would be. I broke down that night. Years of all my unanswered questions suddenly started to make sense. The invasive questions, the manipulation, her own isolation. All of the invasive questions I fielded for years, the manipulation, the further isolation, engineered by the woman who was supposed to protect me, as well as a friend who went years and years back. Even now, I kind of mourn the time that I've lost. While other people in their early 20s are making friends, building futures, going out and having fun, I'm trying to use that time to heal, to try and rebuild from the wreckage of a childhood that was taken from me. 2 days ago, I had my first session with a real psychologist. I did my research this time. I sat down and awkwardly explained why I was there, embarrassed by how surreal it all sounded. But he just smiled and said, "It sounds like we've got a lot of work to do." Yeah, we definitely do. I wanted to share this in case someone out there has experienced something similar. Therapy gone wrong, or a lifetime of feeling like you were trapped in a lie. From what people have told me, it gets better, slowly, with the right people in your corner and a bit of luck. As for Auntie, I'm pretty sure you can see where this is going. Let's not meet ever again. So this happened a few years back, and it's something I've never really talked about. I actually don't know why I'm posting now, but lately, it's been crawling back into my thoughts more and more often. I guess it's just something I need to get off my chest. At the time, I was living pretty far out in the country. It was just me and my dog. No nearby neighbors, no passing traffic. Pretty much just quiet. I find that kind of isolation to be a little comforting, at least in most situations. Well, one night, I woke up at around 2 a.m. because the motion sensor light outside my house kicked on. That wasn't all that unusual on its own. Animals set it off all the time. But this time, it was different. I don't even remember getting out of bed consciously. It was like my body moved before my brain had caught up. I walked over to my window, pulled the curtain back just a few inches, and I stopped dead in my tracks. There was a man that I had never seen before standing at the end of my driveway. He wasn't walking by, out for an evening run, or even shifting his weight. He was just standing still while facing my house. It took me a second to register what I was seeing. My brain immediately tried to rationalize it. A lost person? Someone who might have gotten into an accident down the road. Someone who needed help. But he didn't move, not even an inch. He just stood there under the motion light until it eventually clicked off, and everything went dark again. Because I could no longer see him, I made my way back over to my bed, but I barely slept at all the rest of the night. My dog stayed alert too, pacing and growling at the front door like he sensed that something wasn't right. The next night, it happened again. Almost at the exact same time. The same man, standing in the same exact place. This time, I didn't wait. I called the sheriff's department. They sent someone out, but by the time the deputy got there, the man was gone. The officer walked a perimeter around my house, even shined a flashlight around in the woods by the tree line, but nothing turned up. He told me that it was probably someone passing through, maybe a prank, and that I shouldn't worry unless this man started to come closer. That didn't exactly sit right with me, mainly because of the way the guy stood there. Too still, too deliberate, and on 2 nights in a row? It wasn't like he was unsure of where he was or what he was doing. More likely, he meant to be exactly there. Every night that week, he came back, always between 2 and 3 a.m., always standing in the same spot. But on the 4th night, he stepped closer. It was subtle, maybe another 5 or 6 feet down the driveway, but he was definitely closer to the house than before. Enough so that I can now make out more detail. Dark jeans, heavy coat, long, greasy-looking hair that hung way past his jawline. The man never said a word. He never looked around. His eyes just locked in on the house. The following night, I installed a video doorbell. I knew that it didn't cover the driveway, but I wanted at least some kind of footage in case things were to escalate. I even got a secondary camera that I could mount on the porch. Well, night 5, he came even closer, this time halfway up the driveway. He stopped just outside the range of the porch camera, almost like he knew exactly where the camera's range would end. I stood by the window again, just watching him. He never took his eyes off of his usual staring point. He never fidgeted, just that same eerie stillness. The next night, I didn't see him through the window. I saw him on the camera. This time he had approached the porch, slowly, purposefully, and for the first time, he stepped directly in front of the door. He leaned in so close to the video doorbell that his breath even fogged up the lens. Of course, he didn't ring it. He didn't knock. He just stared into it, before turning his back and walking off. The next morning, I checked the footage again, just to be sure that I hadn't imagined it. And there he was, his face blurry in the low light, but close enough to make out tired eyes and chapped lips. I called the sheriff again, and this time they said they'd send someone to patrol the area for the next few nights. That didn't stop him from coming back again anyway. Same slow walk up the driveway. This time, he tried the door. I was awake, standing in the living room just beyond the door. I heard the faint click as he tested the handle, and my dog growled so low that it sounded like a tremor. That's when this man pressed his face to the window beside the door, and at this point, I was officially too afraid to move. I don't know if he saw me or not, but he stood there for more than a while. Minutes, maybe even longer, before once again turning away and walking off. That night's patrol didn't catch him. Either he knew how to avoid them, or he was just incredibly lucky. And that's when, just as suddenly as this whole thing started, it stopped. No more late night visits, no more motion lights, no more blurry faces in the dark. I would check the footage every morning. I kept waiting, but nothing happened. Days turned into weeks, then months. I never got an explanation. No arrests, no follow-up from the sheriff. My nightly visitor had just vanished. And to this day, I still don't know who he was or what he might have wanted. And I'm glad to say that I haven't seen him since. But I still live out here in the same house. Same dog, same Ring doorbell. Some nights when I wake up around 2 a.m. for absolutely no reason at all, I find myself walking to the window just to check. Because I feel in my gut that somewhere out there, that man might still be watching.